What happens in the next 24 hours has the potential to impact us not just for the next several days, but maybe several weeks, several months, maybe even several years to come. So I just want to give you a good foundation as you start off a brand new week. It is about 1:30 in the morning on Monday morning, but do you hear that? It's quiet. So we have time to chat. Let's start first with presidential politics. Today, October 19th, about 2 weeks ahead of Election Day, is the final day to register to vote in the state of Pennsylvania. It's also the final day to register to vote online or through the mail in the state of Michigan. And you might say to me, well, I don't live in Pennsylvania or Michigan. That's okay. It still matters because voter registration is one of the big stories of the 2020 election. There's so much emphasis on polling numbers. And if you look at polls in general, which I don't very often, quite frankly, because they're backwards looking, they're taking a snapshot of what happened in the past, not necessarily how people feel in the moment. But if you look at polling data, it's tending to favor Joe Biden. But some political analysts are really looking at voter registration and an emerging story in swing states where Republicans have been able to register voters more aggressively than in past years. Some believe that voter registration actually translates into voter enthusiasm or voter turnout. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters. Both parties want to start with the biggest pot of voters possible. That's why they want to register people. But it really depends on who actually goes out and casts a ballot. So voter registration matters. In the swing states in particular, it's really critical. In the state of Pennsylvania, President Trump won that state in 2016 by about 45,000 votes. In Michigan, he won by 10,000 votes. That's less than 1% in both states, and you can see why every vote matters. Today's a really good time, if you haven't done so, to confirm that you're registered to vote or to check if you're able to register and vote on the same day. In some states, you are allowed to do that, but not everywhere. So it's good to have a heads up on that. I have a good link on our website if you need some help just finding a good resource. Second big story you should know about is the economy. There's a big question about whether or not Democrats and Republicans can come together for another economic stimulus plan. And the next 24 hours matter because House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said in order to have a stimulus plan by Election Day, they need to figure it out in the next 24 hours. Now, why is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi involved? The House of Representatives allocates taxpayer money. So they're in charge of figuring out where our money goes. They're negotiating with the White House to try to figure out a way to get Democrats and Republicans together. There's been a couple different sticking points. We'll see if they can figure it out. Why does this really matter? In a lot of cases, this is the money that's helping to help fuel the economy right now as it's been slowing down during this pandemic. And there's a question about sustainability, about how much the American economy can sustain itself during these very strange times. The extra money that was provided by the federal government provided loans to small businesses. It's provided in the past benefits, extra unemployment benefits to those that were out of work. That money went back into the economy. And remember, consumer spending is a huge fuel for the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy is the largest in the world. We're a big fuel for the global economy overall. So this is all connected. Economists in general, I mean, there's different lines of thinking about stimulus. There always is. Some believe it's good, some believe it's bad. You have Republicans that think that there's too much federal dollars going to the U.S. economy and going to local states and cities. Democrats are arguing that that's what the federal dollars are for, to support these different areas during emergencies. And that's the tension. That's a philosophical tension about economic stimulus and whether or not it's good for an economy overall. But we'll see if this can be done. Why does it have to be done by Election Day? It doesn't really have to be done by Election Day. But remember, it's not just the presidential election we're watching. It's the Senate. It's the House as well. You have a lot of lawmakers running for re-election, and they're doing their own political calculations. Final story I think you should know about is COVID-19, a little bit about the pandemic. There is concern about rising infection rates. Some of you have asked, well, is that really about rising infection rates or rising hospitalization rates? And that's a great question. Right now, it looks to be rising hospitalization rates as well, which is signifying more widespread infection overall in the United States. I looked back on what did the pandemic look like in 1918. Remember, the pandemic in 1918 had a first wave in the spring, had a second wave in the fall and the winter, and then a following wave in the spring after. And in some ways, we followed a similar pattern. We had a wave in the spring. We had a little bit of a lull, but not much in the summer. And now it looks like we're going back up again. And officials are concerned about this because we do have some social mitigation efforts in place. And so what else is left in the arsenal if they really want to slow down the infection, slow down hospitalizations. That's a big question. If you look back on 1918, the same struggles that we're having, they also had at the time. Shutting down theaters, public gatherings, schools, who's going to wear a mask, who's not going to wear a mask. These were all debates that were happening at the time. And some research indicates that if social mitigation efforts were left longer in place, they believe that they would have been able to curb some of the deaths that happened during that flu pandemic. There's no way of going back. We don't have a crystal ball for the past, and we don't have a crystal ball for the future, but just a little context that you should know about that. Final thing, Thursday, a big day for the Senate Judiciary Committee. They are going to be voting on Judge Amy Coney Barrett's nomination for the Supreme Court. If she passes out of committee, she goes to the Senate, where she could also pass out of the Senate and move towards confirmation. Thursday is also a really important day that maybe you want to mark in pencil because it could change, but it is the final presidential debate. That's when it's supposed to happen on Thursday night in Nashville, so something definitely to watch. So you got a lot of things going on this week. I hope this is helpful. Questions or comments, let me know. And as always, more on smarternews.com. Have a great week, guys.